Moving to Live is a podcast about movement and exercise. We bring you interviews with professionals in the movement and exercise field. The goal is to provide information for other professionals and also amateur movement aficionados, people who understand that movement is part of what makes life complete. Some of the people we interview you will have heard of. They're well known in and outside of the movement and exercise profession. Others you may not have heard of, but they have a great deal of knowledge to share. Many people doing the best work spend their time working with people, not working on their social media presence. We're going to give you a chance to learn from some of these talented and knowledgeable individuals, and we're going to learn along with you. Moving to Live podcasts are going to be short. Each interview will be long enough to impart usable information, but short enough to be able to be consumed in a single bout, during your workout, commute, or even during dinner prep. We all like long-form interviews, but time is valuable. Moving to Live wants to give you the option to learn and be entertained without needing to commit 60 minutes at a time for an interview. Give Moving to Live a listen. Check out our sister podcast, FitLab PGH, which highlights people, businesses, events, and activities in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area that make movement a priority. Moving to Live would love to hear from you. Want to connect with us or have an idea for somebody you think we ought to interview? Drop us an email, mov2liv@gmail.com, or connect with us on Instagram and Twitter, both _mov2liv. We're excited to bring you these interviews, and we think you'll enjoy each and every one that we bring you. Moving to Live, along with our sister podcast, FitLab PGH, firmly believe that movement should be treated as a lifestyle, not just an activity. That's why Moving to Live brings you interviews from a variety of people in a variety of movement professions. Today's is a first. We're sitting down with Tricia Montgomery, talking about Canine Fit Club and how you can exercise, move with your dog for health. Tricia, thanks for taking time to talk to Moving to Live. Moving to Live is back with another podcast interview. As you heard in the intro, we are part of a sister podcast, FitLab Pittsburgh. Along with this podcast, Moving to Live, we have the ethos that movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity, because movement is part of what makes your life complete. A big hat tip to Eric Malzone, who has two other podcasts you should be listening to, The Fitness Blitz and The Future of Fitness. Eric connected me with today's guest because he recognized that I was crazy about exercising with my dogs and giving good information. Today, I'm excited to talk to Tricia Montgomery, who is the founder of Canine Fit Club. I'd never heard of this before Eric introduced us. There is a franchise of Fit Club facilities where you can exercise with your dog, and that doesn't mean do stupid pet tricks where you get really cool internet pictures and lousy content. This is something that's medically based. This is something that is safe. And Tricia's going to tell us her story about how she became involved with this and her story of fitness and movement. So Tricia, thanks for taking time to talk to Moving to Live today.
Oh, Ben, thank you for having me. Such a pleasure to be here, really.
I like to start out the Moving to Live interviews by saying, what's your 30-second elevator speech? If somebody sees you, you've got a Canine Fit tote bag, or maybe your dog has a Canine Fit bandana around her neck, and they say, what's Canine Fit, or what do you do, Tricia?
Sure. Canine Fit Club is health, fitness, and wellness at both ends of the leash. We have over 20 science-based programs that people do with their dogs, and it's done in a safe and controlled, most of all, a fun environment.
And we're going to talk more about that in part two of the interview. I think it's interesting, exciting. I know you're expanding. I believe you're Chicago-based, but right now you're talking to us by way of Orlando, where you're in the process or already have opened your latest facility.
That's correct. I'm in Orlando right now, and we have done an amazing partnership with a company called Wolfgang Bakery, and we're going to be expanding into all of their locations and then and franchising as well.
So I'm always curious about people's stories because it's really easy to look and see somebody says, this is what I do. But I think the interesting part is, where did they come from? And I know at one point you were overweight. I'm always curious with people, were you active as a child, or is this something, activity and movement, is this something that you found later in life?
I found it much later in life. I was very, very, very overweight as a child. I had two beautiful older sisters. I used to say, one got the beauty, one got the brains, and I got depressed. So, I just was overweight, and I just didn't move, didn't really do a lot, and that continued on through college and beyond that. And I went to see my veterinarian, and with my dog Louie, and who was my basset hound at the time. And what was a normal visit, I thought, was not so normal. He came after taking some samples from Louis. He came back inside, and he sat down across from me. He said, Patricia, every time you come in here, not only is Louis gaining weight, he now has the onset of diabetes. And then I'll never forget this, as Dr. Glenn Mayer, as professional as he could, he looked at me and he folded his hands and he said, and you're not getting any thinner. And then he was an older veterinarian, and he didn't even realize what he said until it came out of his mouth that he said it. And that, tears were streaming down my eyes, and I was, and he's like, oh, but, and the backtrack. But as we all know, words mean things. And I got up, paid my bill, went home, and I don't know if anyone else is like me, but when I get upset, I have a tendency to eat, and I probably ended up gaining more weight at the time because I was so upset. And at the time, I always call them the coulda, shoulda, woulda brothers and their cousin. If only, if only this would have happened. If I should have done this, or if I only had brown hair, if I would have been, all these things and everything. And that I was just in this abyss. And I certainly was not the same person then that I am now. And my idea of exercise at that time with Louis, I would open the door, stand there, let him walk out, let him walk in, and just go back to the couch, and that was it. It took me about 2 weeks then, I'd say, from that whole kind of that abyss of just, sinking into that hole. Something snapped inside me, and I got up, I went to the mirror, I took all my clothes off, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I looked down at Louis, who had waddled beside me, and I was over 270 pounds at the time. I was morbidly obese. And I got dressed, went to the kitchen, started throwing things out, and then grabbed what leash I could and attempted to walk. Attempted to walk to the mailbox. And at that time, my thighs were so large that they were, that kind of rubbing together kind of thing. And that was it. That was my journey. That started everything for me. And we made it a habit. I mean, I started, whether I wanted to at nighttime, and I did it in the dead of nighttime then because I'd been so made fun of. And that's what happens when you're overweight. People make fun of you, whether you've got this beautiful face or a beautiful personality. It's not kind. It's not nice. And we started going to the track, started walking. I started doing little things that I could do. I started to lose weight, and Louis started to get healthier. I went back to Dr. Mayer, and I asked him for a job, and he hired me, not knowing anything about the veterinary profession. But he saw something inside me that I don't believe that I saw myself, and that changed my life. About a year and a half after that time, or about a year, there was an opening for the Chicago Veterinary Medical Association as the public education director. And he said, I think you'd be really good at this. Why don't you try out for this? And so tried out for it, understood everything about the other person who was in the previous position, undercut her price way, and took over the position. And then I served as public education director and executive director for the Chicago Veterinary Medical Association. But during that time, I saw how the trend between human and canine obesity.
And I'm curious, before you saw the veterinarian with Louis, what was your career? What were you doing?
I was doing some at-home work to where I was just doing some kind of just basic, skills to where somebody would hire you out. Nothing really beyond that.
And I know, as you also know, obesity is a problem in the U.S. And I mean, it's very easy to say, well, just stop eating so much or just get off your butt and move. But it's often harder than that, especially if you're somebody like you who was not active as a kid and didn't understand or didn't actually find the joy of moving until later. If you're somebody who's a little kid who enjoys running around and mom and dad and siblings like to do it, then it's easier to get back into it than if you'd never done it before.
Yeah.
Before you'd seen the veterinarian with Louie, had you made attempts before to say, I need to exercise more, I need to watch what I eat a little more, or was this just kind of the light bulb or the lightning bolt, so to speak, that started you on your journey?
No, I lost and gained 1,000 pounds over and over again. And my dad was a huge runner. And I remember, and he'd get us out there and try to get us to run around the track. And my sisters were very thin and I was very overweight. And it was this whole thing to where everybody liked to move except for me. And I didn't want to exercise, and I would try to exercise, but then I'd come home and I'd eat, and I'd overeat or I'd sneak eat, and I, supplement those emotions with eating. And it became this vicious circle. I remember, getting signed up for Weight Watchers. I remember getting signed up for Fat Camp. And coming back, imagine coming back from a month and a half at, this camp, and I came back heavier. How does that happen? I remember reverse psychology that my dad used to do, all these different things, and it just didn't work because you've got to want it. Something's got to snap to where it's like, I care more about me than that food. I care more about this inside me than that. And it's also loving yourself and accepting you for who you are, but also looking in that mirror and starting to unpeel those layers of the onion and looking at yourself, who you are, that it's not everybody else's fault. First of all, let me step back a moment. There are people all across, the nation that have illnesses and issues that prohibit them from exercising and prohibit them from losing weight. That is just a given. We know that. That was not my case. And it was understanding me inside and realizing that it looking in the mirror is a pretty, a pretty clear picture when you realize who you are, if that makes sense to you.
It does. I'm also kind of curious. I know you and I were talking before we started recording. Both of us have lost dogs fairly recently.
Yeah.
And my dog has been a prime part of my movement, not because I had problems moving without her, but just because, as you know, it's hard to go outside or do something with your dog and not have a big grin on your face.
Exactly.
And she would go to the vet, and the vet would listen to her heart and say, you must run or walk with her a lot because she's got a very low heart rate. How much do you think that message was from the veterinarian was more about Louie and you realizing, boy, I really love this dog. I want to keep him around as long as possible. And I know that diabetes is bad, so I need to figure out a way to possibly keep him as long as possible rather than just continuing on this path.
It was everything about Louie, because I would not do it for myself, but I would do it for him. And 9 times out of 10, that's why people come into Canine Fit Club, is that I won't do it for the dog. Makes it okay. It's not about me. Oh, I'm not exercising, but it is about the dog, because people care so deeply about their dogs and their pets, and they want them to live longer, healthier lives. And we're spending so much more money, $90 billion per year on our pets, and we're willing to do so because we want them healthier. We want to keep them alive and leading that amazing quality life.
And I know my other dog was in the vet a couple of weeks ago, and he made the comment, it's like, keep your dog at this weight. I wish I could see more dogs like that. Yeah. And, at that point, I just learned about Canine Fit Club. And I think this is so much, not only with humans, but also with canines. We don't really understand what it takes. I mean, it's easy to say, well, just go out and exercise. And it's more than that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even with humans and canines, it's about nutrition. It's 80% nutrition. And then you've got the exercise component, but I always liken it to a stool, a 3-legged stool. So you've got your nutrition component, you've got your exercise component, but it's also up here. It's in your head. It's in your brain. Because if one of those breaks down, if my mind isn't working, but my nutrition is working and my exercise is working, it's going to fall apart. So those 3 components have got to go together. And keep in mind, it is up and down the leash. We there's a term called anthropomorphism. And, it's widely used, and people sometimes don't think that it's a real thing, but it is a real thing from a human standpoint, that my habits go directly to my dog. My thoughts, I'm carrying those over. So if I'm not going to exercise, my dog is not going to get up and go, hey, I'll see you later. I'm going to take the leash and I'm going to go for a walk by myself now. I'll see you later. Can I grab that weight while I'm at it? And it just doesn't happen. We as humans have to be the ones to motivate, and doing that together. But you've got to first get to the human, which is what my veterinarian did to me, without even realizing he did that. So
we're talking with Tricia Montgomery. She is the founder of Canine Fit Club. I think what you've described, Tricia, is movement is important. We say it, moving to live. Movement is a lifestyle, not an activity. But you've also given, I think, valuable information, rather intentionally or unintentionally. Your dad was a runner, tried to get you to run. And it's, at the end of the day, we would like to see people do X amount of cardiovascular, X amount of resistance training, X amount of mind, body, or flexibility training. And there are standards out there. But before we can get to those standards, if you think about what so many people don't do, we just need to figure out ways to get people to move more. And I think with Canine Fit Club, you figured that out for many, many people. I know in my instance, even though I love to move, if it's snowing and it's 10 degrees out and the wind's blowing, I'm more likely to say, boy, I don't need to go out today. But my two Labradors are going to say, no, we want to go out today. Right. And I'm curious if now that you're older and you've changed your mindset, do you run now, or are there other activities that you preferentially do because just running just has a negative memory for you, or something you just didn't enjoy when you were younger?
No, I was a marathon runner. I started running marathons. I've run 3. I don't run anymore. I think as we get older, I'm 50, it can be hard on your body. I enjoy more so now, like strength training exercises, and I'm a huge Pilates fan. There's so many activities that I love to do that really elongate your body and create longer, leaner muscles. And for your audience, especially if you've been overweight, as I was, and losing over half my body size, Pilates tones, strengthens, elongates your muscles, and it's an incredible benefit.
And I know when I actually have a reformer in my house. When I do some exercises on my back, one of my cats will actually hop on the reformer and watch it move back and forth. So it's good. You can do Pilates with your pet also.
You can. We have Pilates, and so, but cats in our world are meow. Get it? Meow.
So I'm curious with, again, because I just love dogs, with Louis, how did you see that moving with him and just starting out with these walks and going to the track, how did you see that changed his life, both as far as the way he moved and his quality of life, and also how long did he live?
Sure. So when we first started walking, he just stopped. He's like, no, I'm not used to this. I'm not going, and just like, what? You got to leave. We're moving? What do you mean? But it became a journey that both of us took together, where before he ended up losing about 7.5 pounds total, which is huge on a Basset Hound as well. And you can compute that into human terms as well. But the gait, it decreased. Or his gait increased as far as the way he walked, the way he moved. It was more fluid in movement, where before it was a waddle, then it became a gait, and the way that we moved together became this excellent kind of symmetry that we were in sync. From a health perspective, he lived a beautiful life till he was, I think, 11 and a half years old. And it was something that is hard. His diabetes, there was no diabetes after that. We switched his food. It was a way of increasing his life and having him live so much, I would say, happier, healthier, and longer, and really being healthy together.
Did you find that after you got into it, that all of a sudden he enjoyed walking and he was like, "This is lots of fun. Let's go, Mom"?
He did. I think our dogs are the ones that wait beside, and they've got the leash, they're ready to go. If they could have running shoes, they'd already have them tied when they woke up in the morning. It was a habit, because dogs, similar to humans, dogs need a habit. They need a system. They need a daily schedule. And so when we got onto that schedule, it was something that he looked forward to in the morning, and in the evening, he looked forward to doing things together. And if you look at our society, as parents, we're apt to give money, an iPad, an iPhone, and we become that society of kind of crouched down and just being not connected. With a dog, we have a tendency to go, there's a treat, there's this, there's that, and not spending quality time with them. That became a chance for us to spend the quality time with each other and bond with each other, and increasing that love, that unconditional love between the two of us. And I think that only increased things. And when you're with your dog and you're moving together and you're doing something that's good for both of you, and you know it's good for both of you, it's that bond only increases.
We're talking with Tricia Montgomery. She's telling us her story of finding exercise and enjoying it later in life thanks to her dog, Louie. She described how she got a job with a veterinarian and then moved on as working for the Chicago Veterinary Medical Association. And I'm curious, with this job, what did you do with the association in Chicago?
So I was public education director, and then I became executive director of the Chicago VMA. It was interesting, though, during that time, we began to see a growing trend in obesity. And I believe that I was writing my business plan for Canine Pick Club at that time, if I do say so myself. But along that way, I got to meet amazing veterinarians such as Dr. Ernie Ward, who now is the founder of the Association of Pet Obesity Prevention, who's helped us develop these programs. Along the way, I've met amazing veterinarians who recognize that there is a need for exercise and quality nutrition with our dogs. And it's become more so that it's becoming more of a trend or more popular. Keep in mind that more often than not, people do not recognize that their dogs are overweight. Oh, there's a chubby dog. Oh, look how cute he is. It is unhealthy for them. If you're not doing a standard rib check, if you can't see the outline of their body, if all you're seeing is just this kind of roll and you're looking down at them, you've got an issue. And I think people don't realize that even 2 pounds is harmful to our dogs, more so than maybe as humans, because they can't tell us when they're in pain. They cannot tell us when they're stressed. They cannot tell us when, their knees hurt. All of these things. And so we, as the owners and the humans, have to look on that. And that's why working with your veterinarian is so very important in this journey that we're on.
And I think that's a great point that I want to emphasize. I know I'm a regular exerciser with my dogs, and one of my dogs is a 6-year-old Black Labrador who's from the English strain. So she tends to be short and stocky. Okay. And I always ask my vets, because I know the dangers of obesity as an exercise physiologist. I always ask my vets, how's my dog's weight? Now, my other one was always very slim. She was more from the American line. And about 2 years ago, when I asked the question at the checkup, he said she could lose some weight.
Yeah.
So and this was a dog that you would think, no problem. She runs around. She jumps up and down. She was exercising 15 to 20 miles a week of fartlek training, going at her pace when she wanted to run, when she wanted to walk. So I basically cut her food. I cut her food by about 25%, and she lost about 10 pounds. And it wasn't obvious in the way she moved, but she went from being a 66-pound dog to being a 56-pound dog. And every year since then, it's been 2 years that I've seen the vet, because her weight is good. Keep it right there. And it really was, I was feeding her the same amount as the other dog, and I was overfeeding her, not because I was trying to spoil her, but it's just, as you said, you become blinded because it's like, oh, she's an English lab. She's supposed to be stockier.
Right. Well, it's interesting that there's knowledge right now, and there is some issues right now with the breeds of dogs, that they have gotten larger and gotten overweight at the Crush show, at different dog shows, that the show judges have noticed a trend in obesity in those dogs and in some breeds of dogs. And again, we as owners, we think, oh, I'm doing what I've always done. It looks okay. But it takes a veterinarian to say, you may want to think about this. And it's education from the veterinary profession to the public as it is, and making sure that there's a great tool in mind, which is what the Association of Pet Obesity does, and really looks at that. Nutrition has become organic and all these different things. There are so many options for both not only humans, but dogs as well now. It's crazy the amount of the quality that we can have now as opposed to even a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago.
We've been talking with Tricia Montgomery. She is the owner and founder of Canine Fit Club. She was describing her journey. We're going to come back in 2 weeks and learn more about how she went from working for the Chicago Veterinary Medical Association to actually having Canine Fit Club. And I think that's going to be an exciting conversation. Tricia, I want to thank you for being willing to share how you became a mover later in life and how it really changed not only your life, but the life of Louie, and I imagine any dog that you have owned since then.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And remember, working out is not so rough when you take your best friend.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of Moving to Live. Make sure you check out the show notes for contact information for our latest guest, as well as links about all the things we talked about. Intro and exit music is Traveling Light by Jason Shaw. You can subscribe to Moving to Live on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play, and be notified about new episode releases. Have any questions, comments, or suggestions? Drop us an email, mov2liv@gmail.com. Connect with us on Twitter or Instagram, both _MOV2LIV. Please tell your friends about Moving to Live. It's a go-to place for information for movement and exercise professionals and amateur aficionados who understand that movement is part of what makes your life complete. Until next week, keep on moving.